right. What's up, gang? How we doing? Week 3 of the NFL season. It's been a rough week 2 plus Thursday night football of week 3. So we are currently in the shit. All the profit that these live stream bets have made has not wiped away. We're down about 2 units on the year. Granted, some of that is like 2 people being on the same play, So it's like people aren't going to bet it twice, even though it's technically tracked as a unit. You know what I mean? Like, let's pretend me and you are both on the Giants and say we're on it for 1 unit. That technically gets tracked as 2 units, even though it's people are telling that it's only 1 unit play. Right. Regardless, in the shit. That was a great introduction. Joined as always every Sunday by my friend Josh. Josh, how we doing?
Man, I'm feeling good. I don't know. The vibes were a little bit better before the intro. I'm just messing with you. No, I'm good to go, man. I'm ready for NFL Week 3. I struggled a little bit last week. I saved all my good bets for Monday Night Football, and that's my bad. So we'll pick it back up here.
I did not. I also saved losers for Monday Night. The Monday Night, I think one of the worst beats I'll ever have was that Monday Night Football. I had Bijan Robinson 5+ receptions. He had one hit him right in the hands, dropped. He had another one called back because of a face mask, which doesn't make sense to me because whenever there's a face mask, the play stands.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But for whatever reason, that was a no. Like if you have a 50-yard catch and then you're tackled by your face mask, they're going to tack on 15 yards to the end of their reception. For whatever reason, it didn't count. So he ended with exactly 4 when I needed him to get 5.
Oh man, that's a beat.
It was terrible. It was terrible.
So I have to look at the rules on that. I'm assuming maybe if they accepted it and they got more yards, then they didn't tack it on to the end of the run for some reason. That makes no sense.
Maybe if it was, I already talked about this. People are already sick of me talking about it. It was just such a it's one of those things where like on Monday Night Football, you give out 2 plays. If that hits, we had a profitable day. Instead, we were down like 2 units. You know what I mean? It's like such a big swing for one individual day. Anyways, I'm enough complaining. Giants Browns. What do you got in this one? As a Giants fan, right?
Yeah, I am a Giants fan. I'm using that term loosely because it's tough to cheer this team on right now. I don't have a play for this game, but I'm still looking at Neighbors unders, to be honest with you. It's conflicting with this game stinks to high heaven. So I'm kind of like, it's hard for me to project anything other than a nasty, sloppy game that maybe the Giants can hang around in. But I don't have the stones to pull on that. I still think under 66.5 yards receiving for Neighbors, it's kind of where his line should be, like for playing most teams, not the Browns. So I do lean towards he's going to be a lot closer to like 4 for 50, 55 and not get the 67 he needs here. Haven't pulled the trigger on it yet, but I'm planning on probably putting that in the VIP Discord before we're done here.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, it's the perfect like fade after an outlier. Like he got 65% of the targets, and like against the worst defense in the NFL. Like that's not going to happen week over week. So yeah, I totally get that. I went with Deonta Foreman anytime touchdown.
Yeah. Play.
It's still plus 175. I think that's worth a half unit on that one. So I'll go ahead and add that to the sheet as we speak. Yep. I mean, to be honest, like I was kind of going back and forth between him and Ford because Ford got all the week 1 work. And then Foreman, which is confusing. I'm going to mispronounce that at some point.
Yeah, at some point.
Got all the work in week 2. Like Foreman had 14 carries. Ford only had 7. Like he literally doubled him up, and it wasn't like that was only because he's just their salt away a lead back. Like that game, the biggest lead was 16-3, and then it was a 1-score game heading into the 4th quarter. So it never really got that out of hand. I was talked to people. I was on the Action Network touchdown show earlier today, and the guy I talked to was on Foreman. His name is Gilles, pronounced spelled Gillis. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he's awesome. Gilles. He was saying that. I forgot about this. Foreman was injured all of the preseason, so maybe they're kind of like slow rolling him, and that like they want Ford to be like kind of like a scat back, a 3rd down back, kind of like a chunk yardage play, whereas Foreman is going to be the guy that gets the majority of the bulk in all the red zone work. So he was on him. I thought I was already added him to my sheet before. He just kind of helped convince me of it. So yeah, I think that's where the half unit play, the plus 175 at Foreman to score a touchdown.
Totally agree.
So I go ahead and added that to the sheet. Sweet. All right.
Yeah. It's better than when I tried to take Gus Edwards on the Chargers, thinking a similar thing, but it's like no, he's probably the goal line. He's the goal line back and going to see a lot of carries between the 20s as well, to your point.
Yeah, I did that with I also was on Gus Edwards last week, but I took both him and J.K. Dobbins.
Yep,
So
that was the smart play.
Yeah, at least but I don't think that's quite that type of situation. I don't think
no.
Gus J.K. is quite the Browns one.
Right. No, that was against the Panthers. So yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Bears Colts. You got anything in this one?
Bears Colts. I'm another one that I'm still leaning on. I've been looking at it since yesterday. And I think I am going to pull the trigger on this. I'm going to give it out because I'm about to type it up for the VIP, to be honest with you. I really love this play. So I am taking DJ Moore to go under 5.5 receptions, over 62.5 yards combined. Parlay that together.
Anti-correlated parlay.
A negative correlation, baby. I've been waiting for my best spot to hit a wide receiver or receiver under yards or over yards, under receptions, or vice versa. For him, I like him to have some longer receptions this week. It's plus 550 on FanDuel. So I got a quarter unit on that to get up there. I think you can take the yards by themselves, but 5.5 receptions for him is like stupid high. With Caleb Williams, I don't know why you would think like Caleb Williams has the ability to do that 6 times, to drop back and find his top target, who's going to continue to hog all the target share that he has and continue to run the amount of routes he has. He's the reliable dude. Keenan Allen's still banged up. Obviously Odunze as well, and the Rook isn't someone that has a connection with Caleb Williams at all yet. I'm not saying DJ Moore does, but he's actually created so much separation. This has become really a really solid go-to strategy, is find the receivers with the high volume numbers who don't have the actual concrete numbers yet, right? Like they're out there all the time. They're creating separation. Maybe they complained in the media. That always helps as well. Squeaky wheel gets the grease in the receiving cores. So DJ Moore has been visibly frustrated. I didn't read anything that said he was actually outwardly complaining, but he's also a savvy dude who's been quiet and it seems to do stuff behind the scenes and talk to his quarterback in that sense. Eberflus has no choice. His job is on the line at almost like every week this season, I feel like. So DJ Moore is going to see at least like the 7 targets he's been seeing, but I don't think that Caleb Williams is accurate enough to get him 6 receptions. I just think he's going to find him for a big one in a really juicy matchup versus this Colts like 3rd worst pass defense.
Yeah, I love that. So it was the under 5.5 receptions, and what was the yardage that you got?
I got 62.5. Yeah, right there.
Okay, so I guess it's 63.5 now. Does that change your? I'm assuming that doesn't change your mind.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It changed on FanDuel too. You're saying?
Yeah, it's at 63.5 now at FanDuel.
Yep, I'm fine with it.
And you said that was 550.
Yeah,
love that. I mean, any negative correlation parlay I think is solid. The only thing that would make me nervous is that if they just feed him targets at the line of scrimmage, you know what I mean? Just to kind of placate him and to be like, okay, like, yeah, I get why you're frustrated. Like he missed you on a wide open pass down the sideline. And then right when DJ Moore took his helmet off. But yeah, I think that's solid.
This is almost what I call a no sweat though, in the sense that like, it's either going to do great, right? Like, and I'm going to know, or he's going to start racking up those receptions to your point. I'll be like, okay, this ain't it. But he's had a pretty good ADOT. So you're right that they could try to get him more involved. But I'm going to stick with this and just leave it at that. I'm not even really messing with either of the core lines here.
Fair. Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, like it's quarter unit dart throw. So like, it doesn't take the smartest guy in the world to be like, yeah, that quarter unit dart throw has some risk. You know what I mean? Like I always hate when people do that.
I love that. Yep.
I totally passed on this game. I have no idea what to expect. Like the Colts offense looked disgusting last week. The Bears defense, I think, is really, really good. I don't necessarily think that the Colts are going to be able to pressure Caleb Williams the same way that the Texans did. I also don't know that Caleb Williams is capable of dicing up a team even without having the same level of pressure. So I just totally passed. There's 2 games that I just had no idea what to do with. This was one of them. I just didn't even bother. Yeah,
that's fair. Totally fair.
All right, next game, Texans Vikings. So for this one, this is one of my early plays. I put a video out on Monday. I took the Vikings money line for a half unit, and I took the Vikings spread for a full unit. So I have a unit and a half total on the Vikings. As of right, like I got the spread at 2.5, and I got the money line at plus 120. With the way the odds are right now, I would probably just put 1 unit on the money line and call it a day. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and put in the sheet. So you can get that, like if you use Profit, which is like legal everywhere now, because they're like one of those sweepstakes books like Fliff. You can get that at plus 111, if not plus 110.
Love it.
I'm just not ready. I don't know. I feel like the Texans, they're 2-0, but they're not an impressive 2-0. They remind me of one of those teams like who people were high on in the year. Like for a different reason. Like last year's Eagles started off the year 5-0, and like we're never a top 5 DVOA team. They were just like thought they were better than they were because they went to the Super Bowl the year prior, and their like record was good. And the Texans are a team that everybody, including myself, like they're my Super Bowl pick. I love the Texans heading into the year. They like haven't been that impressive through 2 games. Their offense in week 1, like the final score put up a ton of points on the Colts. That kind of was an avalanche as the game went on. They started out really slow in that game. And then the Bears, like a pretty disgusting performance against the Bears, who admittedly have a really good defense, but I'm not super high on the Texans through 2 games. And I kind of think this Vikings team is going to be awesome. Like I didn't buy it last week, or I should say I didn't buy it heading into last week. And then they made the 49ers like totally shut down that offense. They hung over 400 yards on the 49ers defense. And if you want to make the argument that like the 49ers were banged up, their defense is not. Like their defense is healthy. It's their offense that got banged up as the game went on. Like Kittle and Debo played in that game and are now out.
Yep.
And I get it. Like if you wanted to make the argument that the 49ers were coming off of Monday Night Football and that's why they looked a little bit sluggish, that's fine. I just think that the Vikings have looked really good. Like 4th best offense according to BFF through 2 games, 3rd best passing offense, 7th best rushing offense. Like Aaron Jones has looked good, and then he got a little banged up last week, and then Ty Chandler got off 82 yards off 10 carries. And their defense, like Brock Purdy after the game talking about how crazy the schemes of Brian Flores in the Vikings defense, like that is not a player and a team that you can easily fool. You know what I mean? Like it takes like normally Shanahan is the one out scheming the opponents. So maybe as the season goes on, we'll have more film on the Vikings defense, and they're not going to be as surprising in terms of their defensive schemes, like fooling people. But I think for another week against the Texans offense that looked pretty sluggish last week. And the whole thing with the Texans offense last year was they could not do any, they were like really, really good against good defenses. And they're really, really, they're really good against bad defenses, really bad against good defense. You know what I mean? Like they had like dramatic splits. So and that's kind of seems like it's the case this year because they were really bad against the Bears. They put up 19 points, and now it's like 2 50-yard field goals and one like 48-yard field goal. Like it's not like they were constantly moving the ball. Now they did have a fumble in the red zone that was off of a turnover from the Bears. So all in all, I love the Vikings to win straight up in this one. That's where I went. I didn't mess with the player prop. I just took the Vikings straight up. What do you got in this one?
I think it's a really good call. I definitely think this one, it almost stinks to high heaven in a way, where you're like, this still doesn't feel right. Like, why are the Vikes dogs at home? But it's the public perception from the jump. To your point, like people haven't necessarily changed their opinions fully on the Vikings. But what you should really consider for the Vikings is that defensive line is nasty right now. They are getting so much pressure, 2nd in the league in pressure percentage. They're knocking the quarterback down. They're hurrying him. They're in the top 10 in everything you would need to care about. And they're blitzing the 3rd most, but they're getting there, right? Like they're definitely arriving at the quarterback. They've got finishing with 11 sacks, good for 2nd in the league and actually best in the league if you consider that the Jets played one more game and they're leading them in sacks right now after taking down Brissett like 5 times. So yeah, I'm using that to segue into my pick, which is CJ Stroud over 6.5 rushing yards.
Okay.
I think that's going to be what we see here moving forward in this game. You get that minus 105. Best place to get that would still be, where did I put it? I put it in at, it's available on, it was, okay, it got bumped up on FanDuel. But MGM has minus 105 still, but I got minus 105 on FanDuel. It went up in the last like 2 hours. But I think over 6.5 rushing yards for someone who's going to get forced out of the pocket. This is something that he's willing to do. He just hasn't really had to do it very much yet, as we know. So they've kind of kept him upright, even against that Indy pass rush, which was really, really good until it lost to Forrest Buckner. And then the Bears, it was a similar situation, not similar to the Colts game. It was a little bit different in that, like, it was just a slow, ugly game. He got rid of the ball pretty well, and actually took a couple sacks. And I don't think he can do that again. He did not get rid of the ball pretty well, is what I meant to say, excuse me, and took a couple of sacks as a result, had the -1 rushing yards. But you give this man 1 rush and 7 yards should not be too difficult. So I think he's going to get forced out a solid like 5 to 6 times in a way that we should be able to get this pretty easily. Yeah.
I mean, that takes one scramble, which it's always scary when that happens. Cause like the whole game, you're like, just one scramble. Like it just, if the game's close or they're losing, I do know that Battle Fader is on Stephon Diggs touchdown. So I wanted to pull that up right now. Best offered at 175. I think he got it at 190. Yeah, I get that. I mean, like he got 2 touchdowns in week 1. He seems to be like not necessarily a down the field threat, but a red zone third down threat. So, and yeah, I mean, the only other time he's played the Vikings was, granted, totally different situation, but when he was on the Bills 2 years ago, lit him up. I mean, just totally lit him up. So I think that's solid.
Totally agree. And I think Stefon Diggs is going to consistently be another good look for combine his over on a touchdown or receptions with under on yards, because his ADOT is going to remain like under 10 yards for a guy in the slot. Tank Dell and Nico are doing all the work downfield. So
yeah, I didn't look at his ADOT. The only thing that the counterpoint to the ADOT was like in week 1, he scored from like 5 and 4 yards out. Like obviously your ADOT's going to be low and when you're in the red zone. I would just be curious if that also held true last week, which I admittedly did not look that up, because I remember thinking that heading into the week.
Yeah, he wasn't really part of the offense last week, to be honest.
Yeah, he had a couple. Yeah, he had a couple. I mean, I took his under. So like, I'm just curious now his stats. Yeah, 4 for 37. Like, yeah, he didn't do much.
Sorry, the other week, I also. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to. I thought you were done with Stefon. I forgot a pick that I put out on Wednesday.
No, you're good.
But I'll just give it here real quick if that's cool. It did move a bunch. Okay, you can't really get the same number for Dalton Schultz over 2.5 receptions. But I think with Mixon all banged up too, like he's going to own the middle of the field. The best number right now is -140 for the over 2.5. You have to take over 3.5. So that got juiced a ton. I still think it's a good look, but the -140 obviously isn't the same ROI.
Would you get it at?
I got it at -115 or -112 on FanDuel even. Yeah,
that's crazy. Sorry. So if you were telling people to bet it right now, would you advise the 2.5 at -140 or the 3.5 at 160?
Yeah, I'm still in this situation with receptions being like obviously receptions in similar to like a rebound or an assist. It's you get it one by one and you got to trickle it slowly down the field. I think that's not a big enough jump to the +160 you get for 3.5 or whatever have you. So I still think I'd rather put a few more like 1.1 or 1.2 units on the -140. Obviously, if you want to put the 1.45, but my level of confidence was very high with a nice edge on 2.5 at -112. You lose a lot of that edge at -140, but I'd rather go with the more units and less receptions.
Sure. Yeah. No, yeah, totally fair. You think Giants can pull off the win? I do not. I mean, against Deshaun Watson, anything is possible, except when you play the Giants.
it's going to be not can the Giants pull off a win? Can the Browns avoid making enough mistakes?
Disaster. Yeah. Especially like I know he's playing, but like Brian Burns is banged up. Like that's that's it. That I think they're just gonna like Deshaun Watson's gonna throw the ball 6 times. Like they're not even gonna bother.
They don't have to.
All right, Saints Eagles. People don't bother listening to my opinion on the Eagles, so I'll let you go first. What do you have in this one?
Man, I mean, first of all, are the Saints still at -2.5, or do you have to take 3?
No, they're almost 2.5 everywhere.
Okay, great. Yeah, there 3 started popping up. I saw. I don't know if some podcast started talking about but like, come on, man. First of all, -2.5. I don't have any faith in your boys. It's really on defense, which is what I've been telling people since the Falcons game. I did a stream ahead of the Falcons game, and everybody just wanted to take all of the Eagles overs, and I was like, calmate, like this is not exactly what you think it is. So if you can't get off the field on defense, and you're going to be in trouble, as you guys saw. So I like that, and I like Olave to come in and get his yards finally. So I put him up earlier in the VIP Discord. I think that number's still around for -120 for over 64.5 yards. Receiving for Olave. So this is my classic. Dude has all of the usage and volume stats and they haven't really contributed. It hasn't just translated into actual materialized yards. But it's all there, especially the separation. That's what I love about him the most is he has an 89. He leads all receivers in the league with at least 10 plus targets in separation percentage. So 89.5% of his routes lead to him getting separation from him in the DB. He just saw 37.5% of the target share against the Cowboys. As we know, Alvin Kamara did all of the work, so he didn't have to, and he didn't really need the targets after a while. And the second half was void of air yards and throws from Derek Carr. But I think at this point, 4.5 receptions was what I was looking at. It got juiced down to -145. So I started to think, what happens when he gets 5 receptions? Does he usually get the yards? It's kind of like sometimes in the NBA we'll look at a player and go, well, we know he needs to hit 3s to get the points. So how many times does he hit the points when he gets 3 threes? All right, well, it's over 2.5 threes is -150. Seems like that's a really expected outcome that he's going to get the 3 threes. Same thing here. It seems like a very expected outcome. He's going to get the receptions. So -120 for over 64.5 yards. He's gotten 65 plus yards in 14 of 19 career games where he's had 5+ receptions. That was a big part of the logic for me. Was I just think they're going to have to get him involved, and he's still got a very, very high ADOT. He had 57% of the air yards last week in week 2, where like you'd think Rashid Shaheed would be the one getting all the air yards from Derek Carr, but most of the time the ball was thrown downfield. Those yards were accumulated for a throw towards Chris Olave.
Yeah, I love it. My play I already put in the sheet. Oh, so I pumped him up. Olave 100+ receiving yards. I put a half unit on that bad boy at plus 320 odds. This just screams so many things. Screams regression for Rashid Shaheed, who is awesome. Yeah. But these deep threats, man, like Deshaun Jackson had games where he had 1 reception for 7 yards. Like it's just what happens with these deep threats. And theoretically, a Vic Fangio defense, their goal is to limit the big play. Now, they have not been good at that through 2 weeks. Jaden Reed had a 70-yard touchdown pass against them in week 1. They allowed Kirk Cousins to dice them up in about half a second in the 4th quarter of week 2 with like the prevent defense. That was pitiful. But theoretically, that's their goal. Do not allow the deep threat. And after watching Shaheed go deep in the first 2 weeks, like that's going to be on their radar. And I think they're going to say, we're going to let them dink and dunk, not necessarily deep and dunk, because like Carr isn't like a check down Charlie. He's not a Bo Nix, but they're going to sell out to not get beat deep by Shaheed. And I think that a lot of the crosser stuff, the underneath stuff, the slant route, like all that stuff's going to be open for Chris Olave. So that's why I love the play backing him. I had not given him out yet on my Dub Club. I honestly, any last second stuff, I like to see where your head's out. And like, if we're in alignment, then it reinforces my thoughts. Yeah. So
I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm in the same place for sure. Like I haven't pulled the trigger on one of those I was giving out, but the DJ Moore one just had to, because I'm full agreement. So
yeah. So there's certain stuff that I know I'm going to be on, and then certain things are like, let me see what Josh thinks. So yeah, I'll probably send out the pumped up one as soon as we hop off. But if you're listening, half unit on 100+ at plus 320 odds. But I actually do think that the Eagles cover. I think that it's funny.
Oh, it's doing
from both of ours. You can change that. It's not a big deal. I don't care. See, I actually disagree with this. I think that after 2 weeks of this hitting, I think it's really hard to expect that week over week from a deep threat, especially because that's like all he does. It's like, if you don't connect, it's just tough.
Yep.
So anyways, but I actually think, not necessarily because I'm high on the Eagles, I just think that it's like a perfect buy low spot on them, perfect sell high spot on the Saints. Like this spread moved about 7 points from like open market till now, which obviously you take into account the data that we have. And also part of that is AJ Brown, it isn't in, but like on Monday morning, before the Eagles lost, after the Saints destroyed the Cowboys, this was Eagles -2.5, -3. And now it's completely flipped the opposite way. So I actually, like I said, I'm not putting my money anywhere near it, but I would lean towards the Eagles covering. And I thought that last week, and they lost outright. So you don't always know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
All right. Chargers, Steelers. What do you got in this one?
I'm actually climbing a ladder in this one with George Pickens. And
I like it.
It's just unrealized and unmaterialized opportunities, essentially, right? Like George Pickens, only dude on this team that, other than Pat Freiermuth, basically only dude on the outside that's going to catch any balls for the Steelers squad. He's got 11 targets, which is as many as the next 2 wide receivers on the team combined. The next 3 wide receivers. Like Freiermuth is the only one with even close to as many targets, right? So the 2 of them have about a 50% target share. That should tell you everything. He's gotten some really tough looks. I would say Patrick Surtain Jr. And AJ Terrell on the Falcons, 2 of top 5 easy cornerbacks in the league. Now he's going up against another legendary son in Asante Samuel. Yep, Jr. But the Chargers play zone. So this was something that stood out to me. I already knew I was going to be looking at George Pickens. When I opened at 44.5 receiving yards, I hit it, but I could only give it out at 48.5. So that's the core bet, 48.5 yards. Laddered him up to 59.5 because that was plus 185. And I love that. And then make sure I'm not lying to you. Sorry. And then 59.5 is plus 185. And then over 99.5 as well. I got him on the 100 yards is plus 750 for George Pickens to do that. So I was like, come on, man, plus 750, put 0.2 units on it to win the 1.5 back. I'm very happy with that. So yeah. So for Pickens, like I said, all the stuff's unrealized. 27% target share. Really much easier matchup this time. And then zone. He beats zone coverage very well for yardage. He has an 81% success rate against zone this in the last 10 games, including towards the end of last season. So he's a target monster. He's a hog. He's going to have a good matchup against a zone that he's good against. I got to expect him to break out. So that's why I like the 99.5. But I think the core bet is so low that it's the most abusable of all the lines.
Yeah, I think I love that. I was waiting another week to buy in on George Pickens because I totally agree with you that he is due for an explosion, kind of like Chris Olave. I just thought that it was more likely to happen next week, but I totally agree with the
Who
logic
do they have
here.
next week? The Steelers?
I didn't look at the schedule. I just thought that I just thought that it was going to be a tougher game because like the Chargers defense has been solid.
Yeah.
It's the Colts next week. That's why it's the Colts.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And so I was like, all right, give me one slower week of Pickens and then I'm going to buy him. But I totally think that's a solid look. How much did you put on the 60 plus?
The 60 plus was half a unit. So it's 1.7 total. Yep.
Got it. All right.
All you've done now is convince me that if it doesn't hit this week, I'm going back to it next week. So
yeah, I do that all the time. It's also, I do that same thing for the NBA. All right. In this one, I took the Chargers money line. Granted, I took this on Monday. I didn't think that Herbert was even like a question that he was going to miss time. It looks like he's going to play with a sprained ankle. I think he's going to be fine. The Steelers are like one of the most fadeable teams, in my opinion. Like Pickens could go off 100%. But look at the Steelers. Like they've played 2 games. They're 2-0. They played the corpse of Kirk Cousins, who could not move in week 1. And then they played Bo Nix in week 2. And both of those games were 1-score games. And both of those games, the losing team had the ball with a chance to either take the lead and tie at the end of the game. So it's not like they're blowing out their opponent. They're not looking. Yeah. And then you look at the Chargers, you can make the same easy schedule argument. They've won both games by double digits. So like they're not playing with their food the same way that the Steelers are. They beat the Raiders by 12. By the way, the Raiders just beat the Ravens. So maybe they're not a stinky team. And then they beat the living crap out of the Panthers, which is exactly what you have to do when you play the Panthers. You beat the crap out of them. But they let Bo Nix hang around. They let Kirk Cousins hang around. Like they won that game against the Falcons and didn't score a single offensive touchdown. Yeah. They beat the Broncos, scored 1 offensive touchdown. It's not the case with the Chargers, who have, had an easy opponent, but they've looked much better. Like the Chargers have the best defense in the NFL, according to PFF. And I believe it's the same thing for DVOA. I didn't write that down. If you give me 2 seconds, I can go check that. But
check it out, yeah.
The Chargers offense, or their offenses look better. I trust Justin Herbert way more than Justin Fields, assuming that he plays, which I think he will. Yeah. And their defense analytically has been better than the Steelers defense. So let's see. Chargers, number 1 defensive DVOA as well. So number 1 according to PFF and DVOA. So I think that the Chargers win this game straight up. You can get them at plus 132 odds at Profit X. If not that, plus 130 at MGM. And I'm all over that.
I like it. No, I'm with you. I mean, this game is a big stay away because I'm terrified. It's just like a back and forth in a way that I'm not positive about. But I do think, as good as the Steelers defense has looked, we know that this Chargers team is going to be running the ball all day for the entire game. And that would be one area maybe that they'll be able to then neutralize that Steelers D, which, like we've said, look good against just poo-poo competition. So.
Exactly. Like the worst competition you can think of. Mm-hmm. All right. Speaking of one of those poo-poo teams, Broncos Bucks. What do you got in this one?
Man, I'm gone back and forth so much. I still haven't pulled the trigger. And what I was looking at is Bo Nix. I think, first of all, this game is perfectly placed for what I call the stinky bet of the week. They are minus 6.5 for the Bucks. Here's what I specifically mean by stinky. The Bucks are minus 6.5. Why? They beat the Lions, right? They beat the piss out of the Bucks. The Redskins. Jesus, there's $1 in the bucket for me. First, they beat the Commanders. That was the swear jar. My bad. But they beat the crap out of the Commanders. Talk about not playing with your food. And then they beat the Lions in a revenge game that was huge, and they looked really good. They're a little bit banged up, but why is it 6.5? So if it's one of those situations where I can't explain to you why it's not 10 or 9.5. As a result, I would buy the Broncos because it's so stinky. I can't come up with a reason to bet on the Broncos. Everybody's betting on the Bucks. That screams bet the Broncos to me. So I stayed away from it, but I would lean towards the Broncos. It's not an official play, but I just could never bet on the Bucks, even under a touchdown. The play that I want to make with Bo Nix is the passing yards, because I think 189.5 yards. I've had very smart people tell me if you ever put on pads and start quarterback in the NFL, you should be able to throw for 200 yards over 4 quarters. I still think Bo Nix is capable of that. It's 189.5 passing yards. I'm still waffling, but I'm strongly leaning into his over yards. The passing attempts are at 31.5. I actually didn't mind them. They opened at like 30.5, and that extra one for some reason is just maybe it's just mentally keeping me from doing the attempts. But they can't really run the ball. We've seen that already. And the Bucs are so banged up in the secondary with Winfield out, their top corner out, other two corner and safety are questionable, leaning towards doubtful at this point. So there's not much to stop him, and he's at least capable of getting, like I said, 190 yards passing in this game. So if you think they're going to be close, the thing that is keeping me away from it too is I don't know that he's going to have to pass a million times by the time they get to the second half. I think he can still stay in that neutral game script and hand the ball off a bit more if they want to. Just hasn't been successful. So I do like the yard even more than the attempts, though.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the Broncos cover. I mean, the Bucs beat the Lions last week, but like they got doubled up in terms of yardage. They got bailed out by some just disgusting interceptions from Jared Goff, who looked like he's never played quarterback before. And I think the Lions were like 1 of 4 in the red zone. The only thing I worry about with the Knicks passing is the fact that Vita Vea is out, which means that like they might just try and run as much as they can. And this was. I mean, I don't have a bet in this game. This was the second. Sorry, and were any of yours official, or are you just kind of giving out?
No,
leads?
Sorry, all those were just me waffling and
that's
talking
what I thought.
about it.
Yeah.
But I haven't
thought.
Put that play down yet. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't touch this game. I've no idea. Like it was just some games just aren't worth your time. This was one of them.
Yeah.
All right, Packers, Titans. I had 2 plays in this one. Gave them out both on my Dub Club and my YouTube channel, so people probably already know when I'm on. But I took Tony Pollard anytime touchdown. That odds admittedly got a little bit nuked. Like, let's see, right now, Tony Pollard. Actually, it's a little bit better, plus 125. When early this morning, it was 115. So I put a full unit on that. I got it at 130, totally fine at 125. And I also took Tony Pollard 80 plus rushing yards. And I got that. Let's see what that best offered is right now. 80 plus is plus 210, which I think is close to what I got it at. And I put a half unit on that. So obviously I'm in full thought process that Tony Pollard's going to have a blow up game.
Yeah.
So, and I'm just updating the notes, which I guess I can do while you're talking. So my logic here is there's a couple things. Number one, he's been awesome. He's been really good. He looks healthy, like way healthier than he did last year. And he started to get healthy at the end of last year, but people were already so off of him that it didn't matter. But you look at like his last 5 games with the Cowboys, he looked much, much better. Heading into the year, we thought that this was going to be a 50-50 time split. At least I did. It's not. Tajay Spears, even before Tajay Spears got hurt, it's been Tony Pollard as the main guy, and then Spears coming in just to give Tony Pollard a rest. Like Tony Pollard's gotten 65% of the running back snaps, and he's gotten 61% of the rushing attempts. And that includes all rushing attempts, not even only running back. Like that number's higher if you just include running back rush attempts. He's gotten the 4th most targets, tied with Bijan Robinson with 10. So he could also score in the receiving game. He scored in week 1. He's got the 10th most rushing attempts in the NFL with 33. And he's getting all the red zone work. So like why I think he's going to score is he's getting all the red zone work. Granted, like the Titans haven't run a ton of plays in the opposing team's red zone because Will Levis just decides to turn it over before they get there. But all the red zone work, 3 of 4 carries, the only target gone to Tony Pollard. And I think this is a good matchup. Like the Packers on the scoreboard shut down the Colts offense last week. In reality, Anthony Richardson shut down the Colts' own offense last week, but Jonathan Taylor rushed for 100 yards on 12 carries. Yep. The Packers, we all know what Saquon did to them in week 1, and they only really fixed that because Anthony Richardson couldn't move the ball when they made him pass, which like we can make the same argument with Will Levis.
Yep.
But I just think that like if the touchdown doesn't hit, I think that he's going to get the yards. Packers 24th ranked rush defense according to DVOA, 27th according to PFF. They've allowed the 6th highest yards per carry, and this next stat I think is really, really important for Tony Pollard. The Packers have allowed the 2nd highest percent of rush attempts go for at least 15 yards. Like that's Tony Pollard's game. He might not be a 25 carry kind of guy, but he could be a 15 carry for 100 yards kind of guy because he's just going to break off these chunk plays. He's physically looked really healthy. And I think that, again, like Malik Willis is starting. I don't think that the Packers are going to be able to do what they did last week this week. Like that's kind of like a one-time game plan kind of thing. So I think that the Titans are mostly going to be playing with the lead. And I like after watching Will Levis just lose 2 weeks in a row, like he is the reason why you lost because he's a moron. You just give the ball to Tony Pollard the whole game. So I love the Tony Pollard angle with this one. This is like for the Action Network touchdown show. They asked me for my favorite one. He's who I gave out. Like he's my favorite play in terms of a touchdown. So yeah, that's where I went in this one. What about you?
Fire. Glad you went first because you said it better than I could. You took rushing only?
So no, I took anytime touchdown and rushing.
Okay, got it. I was looking at rushing and receiving at 82.5 because I can't get away from his receiving. And I think really what I'm about to put down is at this point, I've been waffling between receiving yards, receptions, and rushing and receiving yards. Because I agree, like I think he's going to be able to run the ball. I think they're going to have that game plan a little bit more strongly than they did last week as well. So I would agree that he's going to continue to get that usage. I think they are in line to win this game. I think they're a good bet at -3 still. Now that the hook is gone at 3.5. So I do think the running is something I can't get away from. But I think the over 2.5 receptions, it's even money. So I think even a half a unit play on even money, if you don't want to have too much exposure to Pollard, but I agree. Like everything you're talking about, the usage, I don't know why I'd be afraid of it. The rushing and receiving at 82.5 is the other look that I have. I think I'm going to just do one more final push when we get off the show, put it on. But I'm leaning one of those three. And I think if I took the yards, like I said, might as well just take the rushing and receiving because I do think he's going to get at least the 15 rushing attempts that he's listed at.
Yeah. And also, speaking of attempts, I meant to mention this earlier. Ahan came in here and said that from his data, Vegas is really, really sharp with attempts. So like when you look at rush attempts, pass attempts, you can count on the player to be pretty close to that number. What they have no idea and are not nearly as good about is efficiency. So like
how many yards that can turn into.
Yeah. Like you can count on about 15 attempts rushing for Pollard. Is that can turn into 50 yards? That can turn into 100 yards. Like they're not nearly, it's like that. There's way more variables that go along with efficiency, not necessarily with the attempts. So like if you believe what he said about the attempts, I think that you can use that for like, that's how he models his entire, that's how his model, he has his own model and he puts in the attempts from Vegas and then he uses whatever calculation for the efficiency. So, anyways,
that's smart. That's smart handicap. That's smart data analytics is just, you can't
100%.
Predict what's going to happen on the play, but you can predict if the opportunities will even be there. It's same across any sport. If the volume is there, then you at least have a projection that you can base now a number that you create against the line. I totally agree. So exactly. You're just convincing me to keep going for the yards for him. So we'll see in a little bit, but we're big time on the same page that Tony Pollard's a bet this week.
Yeah. And just a heads up, the Tony Pollard right now, I had it up on the screen. I went away with it. His current rushing plus receiving yards, you can get it at over 75.5. So you can get it at a way bigger discount. That's I wrote BetMGM, it's Fanatics. After that, it's 79.5. So like that's a huge gap on Fanatics, but like that's a pretty good play. So that's what I wrote down for you. Is that what you?
Absolutely. I mean, it looks like I'm going to put it down at 79.5 on FanDuel just because I want to give out a book that I know everybody has.
Yeah, fair.
But Fanatics, if you can get Fanatics for sure, I'll make that very clear.
Cool. All right. Yeah. I mean, if they let you bet more than $1.
Right.
All right. That was the end of the 1 p.m. games. Last week, I accidentally skipped a game, but I don't think I did that. So, all right, we're good. Dolphins, Seahawks. What do you got in this one?
Man, I saw someone talking about Charbonnet. So I think Sharps is the bet. I need to look a little bit more into it.
We have not asked about that. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Someone asked. We have not talked about it yet. That's all I was going to say.
Right. Yes, 100%. So I'm glad we're there now anyway. But and this is the 405 start. So I'm going to look at that a little bit more. I know I have a little bit more time for that one, but my lean here is Charbonnet touchdown. Is it still -110 for that? I didn't look at it again in the last like 2 or 3 hours.
Zach +100 at Fanatics, -1. Wow, look at that line movement. -1. I mean, that's an insane price discrepancy.
-105 on FanDuel is still beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's going to be my play for him in this matchup. I think once he's liable to run it in or catch it and run it in. To be honest, I have no faith in the Dolphins. I don't know why you'd have faith in their defense. I don't have faith in Skylar Thompson. I'll tell you that right now. 5.5 and Mike McDaniels rather not Mike McDonald. Mike McDaniels scares me a little bit. I still think Mike McDaniels has got the coaching edge there against McDonald. So I still prefer him to do something even with Skylar Thompson. But Skylar Thompson, Malik Willis, name another guy who you don't trust to throw past 7 yards. Like you can't win in the NFL if your quarterback can't throw it 10 to 15 yards accurately, period, end of story. So all of this is based, all the Dolphin stuff is unders for me. If you're betting anything, to be honest, I don't know why unless Tyree catches a 5-yard, crossing route and just keeps going, which is obviously possible. Skylar Thompson ain't hitting him 25 yards down the field for him to catch and run. So I'd like all that under stuff, but Charbonnet to be able to just continue them to dominate the offensive line against this really, really weak Dolphins defensive line. The way that they're giving up yards, you can take the rushing yards as well, but I think this is a big rushing day. I don't think the Seahawks have to put Geno out there continuously the way they have in the last 2 weeks, where the run game wasn't working quite as much. I know Kenneth Walker had the 106, but it was on 20 carries in week 1 against the Broncos. So yeah, I'm on the everything Seahawks and Zach Charbonnet to get a tutty at -105.
Cool. Yeah. For my thoughts are, if I were to back Charbonnet, it would only be the touchdown. It would not be the yards. I just think that he runs like he's in quicksand. Like his feet can't move. He looks like just a totally inefficient runner. He can rumble into the end zone. I worry about the yards. So for the question about I would personally do whatever Josh tells you. If you're asking for my opinion, it would just be the touchdown.
That's fine. Yeah. I'm on the touchdown. Yeah. That's my play.
Yeah. All right. So then my play, and perfect timing because a question came in about it. I saw Fader put this out on his Dub Club. I'm on Devon Achane receptions. Now, what makes me nervous is this was +110 when I looked yesterday. I don't know what happened. Now it's all the way up to +140 at BetRivers or +130 at Bet365. I don't love when the market gets some line movement doesn't bother me. The market getting just nuked to high hell makes me a little bit nervous. But in terms of the play itself, this to me screams smash play for Devon Achane receptions. Raheem Mostert's out again. With Raheem Mostert out last week, Achane had 27 opportunities. He had 7 targets. He caught all 7 of them. And what's the backup quarterback's best friend? It's just checking the ball down to the running back. That's all he's going to do is just check the ball down a ton. It's back-to-back weeks in which Achane has had 7 receptions, and his line's at 3.5, 4.5, if you want to get the plus money. As of right now, I didn't actually bet this one myself. I don't know if I'm going to or not. I would, if I were to play it, I would play the 4.5 at +140 at BetRivers, and I would only play it for 3/4 of a unit. I want to put a full unit on that because at the end of the day, that aggressive line movement is a little bit concerning. So that's what I'm going to put in the sheet. If I end up adding it to my official plays, obviously everybody will know because I'll send it out. But yeah, that's where I would go in this game. And
they're going to limit you on that 3/4 of a unit for yourself at +140.
Yeah. I mean,
if
I'm betting it, if I bet it, it would be at Bet365. But not everybody has the same issues that I have. So I just give it out at the best price.
Yeah.
All right. Panthers Raiders. Talk about poo-poo platter. What do you got in this one?
Yeah, Panthers Raiders. Who's scoring for the Raiders? That's what I'm looking at here. And
Zamir White.
He probably is, but
why not? That's my guess.
Why not also Brock Bowers, and why not even maybe also Devontae Adams?
I mean, fair.
But if you still get the close to 3-1 for Bowers, that could be a look as well.
230.
Okay, yeah, it was +270 to start the week. It hasn't really lost that much juice. Devontae, I think, is still about +160. If you can see him on there.
Devontae 140 now.
Devontae's at 140. So I think with Bowers, we're waiting for him to get in the end zone, but has a rookie tight end looked this good? I guess since Sam Laporta, but Sam Laporta was an anomaly. It happened last year, right?
Yeah.
Rookie tight ends don't do well, but Brock Bowers looks like the tight end 1 in the league right now. So it's really hard to bet against him. And with that, the level of the numbers that you get here for him, I think he's the play. But Zamir White is the easier play, I think Zamir White rushing attempts is still the look. Those are the two bets that I need to finalize: is which guy am I taking for the touchdown, and which guy am I taking the rushing attempts or the yards for Zamir White, because I think he'll be involved in that. We've seen Madison basically used as the pass catching back, and I do think there is something to the idea that like we'll continue to get way higher usage for Zamir White as the season goes on as the main runner on this team. And there's no reason to think that he can't do it. Like take rushing against the Panthers, end of story. So
yeah.
Where are you at with it?
So, all right. So you're right now, you're kind of,
I'm waffling. I am. Yeah.
All right. No,
does it work if I give you stuff after the show's over, or it needs to be on the show to be on the sheet?
No, you can tell me after the fact.
Okay.
It's more so like for people watching live, if they're interested, but yeah, no, that's no problem.
Yeah.
I'm going with Zamir White. I totally get Devontae Adams. I totally get Brock. I mean, Brock Bowers has been awesome. To me, he seems like in between the 20s kind of guy, as opposed to a red zone guy. The reason why I'm going with Zamir White is like the Raiders want to be a like testosterone, don't throw the ball, run the ball down the opponent's throat type of team. They just haven't been able to do that the first 2 weeks of the year. They were down the whole game against the Chargers, and they were down the whole game against the Raiders until they finally came back and then won. But like they've never been in an opportunity where they're winning with the ball. So that's not going to be the case this week. Whether it's Andy Dalton, who it is, I don't care. Like the Panthers' offense might be better. I don't think they're going to be good. Also, like StreamYard's telling me that I have bad connection. If people are experiencing that in the chat, let me know. Everything's coming through clear on my end, but
for me
it's
too.
It's just telling me I have low connection. So if that's the case, people let me know in the chat. But anyways, like it's been Alexander Madison, but because he is their receiving guy, not necessarily their like run the ball when they're salting away a lead type of guy. So I think that when they get to the red zone, I think that they're just going to be running the ball with Zamir White, and like he's plus 105. He's that low of odds for a reason, because like it's rushing against the Panthers. So that's where I lean. I mean, you're getting obviously way, way better odds on Bowers. You're getting way better odds even on Devontae. Yeah. In between the two, I would probably lean Bowers just from like an odds perspective. And like the amount of usage that he's getting is crazy. It just hasn't necessarily translated in the red zone. But from my opinion, it's Zamir White because they're just going to be salting away a lead. And like they want to go back to their core, which is testosterone, run the ball.
Do you like the yards for him at 61.5 or so?
Yeah, I would lean towards that as well. Kind of the same logic. Like, he's probably going to get the ball a ton. Like the Panthers already had a bad defense, and then after week 1 lost their best run defender. And like that that 61.5 isn't bad. Like, you know, if you're a believer in sharp sports books, like BetOnline is 64.5, Circa's at 63.5. So that 61 does represent some value.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Sorry, I'm just going through some of the comments.
Oh, you're good. I'm probably going to at least sprinkle on the Bowers one. And I think Zamir White's a good look. And I think the Zamir White rushing is also a play here. So I'm with all that.
Someone asking about Barkley. I'm guessing this is Saquon Barkley. I don't like, I know he scored a receiving touchdown in week 1. He still only had 2 receptions in that game. And if I look up his stats real quick, like he's had through 2 games, 21 and 23 receiving yards on 2 and 5 targets. Like the 5 targets is solid. Of course, that one drop very much hurts. Yeah. Let me just look at what his yards is. I personally wouldn't touch this one. Hurts is just like not a throw to the running back quarterback. Like that rushing quarterbacks don't throw to running backs. They run themselves. And that's kind of the equivalent. So like it needs to be a designed play to Barkley as a receiver in order for him to get any type of receptions in receiving yards. And like it worked in week 1 when they had the touchdown. In week 2, like I said, like 4 or 5 receptions for 21 yards isn't terrible. I just don't think that your ceiling is high enough. And I think that the floor could be 0 for 0. Mm-hmm. So I would actually lean the under. People are asking me what I would do. I would lean the under on Saquon. But again, it's not making anywhere close to my ticket. And Antonio Pierce said he's going to let Zamir run wild. That's part of my logic.
Yep. I'm with it.
Cool. All right. Next game, we're talking Lions Cardinals. What do you got?
I didn't get a bet in on this one yet either. Still looking at it, and the things that I'm looking at for this game are, I mean, to me, it's almost stinky as well. The Cardinals are coming in off of a beatdown of a team that had third stringers in the Rams. And you've got the Lions coming in looking like absolute doo-doo in there. I mean, look, that's not fair to say. Jared Goff has looked like absolute doo-doo, to be honest with you.
Yeah, he's been terrible.
Yeah, and I would say the play calling, like, I don't know, is Ben Johnson just like overthinking this? Why are you not just running the ball with clearly the best offensive line? The Lions rushing offensive line metrics are like miles ahead of the second place best rushing offensive line. It's not even close. So
yeah,
just stop. Just give it to Monty and Gibbs and get Gibbs in space. Get Amon-Ra on the crossing routes. Hit Jamison Williams down the seam for 30. Just stop like messing around with all this silliness of trying to like run Amon-Ra for deeper A dot because you like, and at least in week 2 they got him more involved. I think you just see more of that. So it's hard for me to do anything other than Jared Goff has a slight turnaround. This game is probably very high scoring, but still, I think that the play clock is going to be run down a lot by the Lions as they run the ball down the field and have like 8 to 9 minute possessions somewhat consistently, even like 3 or 4 of them. So I don't think that even though this game reeks of points coming, I'm a little bit worried that like the Lions don't want Kyler to be able to do Kyler stuff. And the way to do that is just put the ball right back in his hands and have your defense be tired against him. So I'm still leaning towards like the Lions win this game. I just haven't figured out how to work the props into that.
Yeah. I think that's fair. It's like, it does seem like a little bit of galaxy brain type thing where they're trying to overthink themselves a little bit. And like Goff was just so bad, but like they still, like I said, they doubled up the Bucs in yardage. I think the only reason why they didn't run the ball is because the Bucs before Vita Vea got hurt are like, you just basically can't run on them.
Yeah.
So I had 2 plays in this game. Number 1, I had Montgomery anytime touchdown. I got it at -105. It got a little bit nuked to where it's at now, -115 at the 2 worst sports books in existence, BetMGM and Fanatics. I would probably still take it. I mean, like, and I'm just writing it to the sheet now. Like, this is a game where they're going to be able to run the ball. The Cardinals have one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. They're just an abomination. And I think that, like, what's one thing to do when your quarterback's struggling? Just continually run the ball down the opponent's throat. And they're going to be able to do that. And as good as Jahmyr Gibbs is, and like he's going to continue to get some work, Montgomery is still mostly the leader in the red zone. Like he has, in looking at my notes, like Montgomery's tied with 4 other running backs with the second most running back carries inside the 10-yard line. He's got 5. The league leaders are at 6. Gibbs only has 3 inside the 10-yard line. And we all remember, like, overtime against the Rams, they're just like, you know what? Just run the ball with Montgomery over and over and over and over again. And I'm just laughing at that. Let's say who comments from who.
Just make it clear,
yeah. And so I think that's what I think they're going to be able to do that a ton on the Cardinals. Cardinals run defense is pathetic. Their defense is pathetic. The second play that I had is Trey McBride, 7+ receptions. So I also took a ladder play on him. I put a half unit on McBride to get to this number. I got screwed by him last week. I had him 7+. He ended with 6, and he basically didn't play the fourth quarter because, I mean, that game was a blowout basically at the end of the first quarter. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think they're going to blow out the Lions in the first quarter. And this Lions team is a run funnel. You can't run on them, but you can pass on them. And they've been that way for 2 years now. It's the same thing. And the amount of work that McBride gets is like up there with stud receiver numbers. So far through 2 weeks, he's got the 5th highest target percentage in the entire NFL at 28.8%. That's like including every position, the 5th highest target percentage. Look at the 4 guys above him. It's Justin Jefferson. It's Malik Neighbors. It's like the stud of the stud wide receivers. And then you look at like first read targets. He's got the 5th most of all first read targets for tight ends with 10. He's got the 2nd most designed targets across all tight ends. And last week, Marvin Harrison blew up. That's all anybody remembers. McBride led the Cardinals in receptions last week, even in a game in which Marvin Harrison blew up. McBride led the Cardinals in receptions. And it's a tiny sample size, so this part is a little bit tougher to like really know if it's going to happen week or like matter week over week. But the Lions run man coverage almost 60% of the time. They have like the 3rd they run man coverage. Sorry, they run man coverage at the third highest rate, and McBride has a winning percentage against man coverage of about 60%. That's what for the 60%. That's what I meant to say. So again, it's like on 7 or 8 routes, so it's a tiny sample size, but he wins almost 60% of the time against man coverage, and he's got the highest separation score against man coverage on the Cardinals, above Marvin Harrison, above all these guys. So I think that like he's already a favorite target of Kyler. It should be a good matchup from the like the way the Lions play defense and just him being a favorite target. So that's where I went with this one. That's why I love the McBride angle.
Yep.
Real quick, Jay Ritta. This has everything that we, at least for me, that I already gave out on YouTube, and then new stuff as well. So if this is the only thing you watch, you will get everything that I'm playing. All right.
I was going to lie to him and be like, nah, you got to go watch it all, man. Sorry. But
well, I mean, I would appreciate subscribe, watch all that stuff, but
give him the ghost view on the other videos. Just have it running in the background and just watch this.
Exactly. Yeah. You're watching NFL. Just put it up on your phone, running in the background.
Like my mom does. And I'm sure your mom does.
My mom watches them. And
I know.
If I say anything bad about the Eagles, she gets mad at me.
Yo, your mom has good feedback too. Honestly, you should listen to her.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's true. Jedi Mom, that's her name. She hasn't commented.
It's my favorite thing about your channel, dude. Honestly.
Jedi Mom.
Yeah, she's the GOAT.
All right. Game of the week, probably. Raven. Yeah, this is actually a good point from Fader. If you're on the Dub Club, you get the best odds. If you watch them on YouTube, you get the second best odds. If you watch them on the live stream, you get the worst odds, unless they move in the wrong direction, which happens less frequently. That's actually, I should have said that. That's a better sell to watch the videos. But, so, yeah.
It's true too, though.
Yeah, it's very true. All right. Ravens, Cowboys. What do you got?
Got to look at this one too. This one I'm definitely going to spend some time on, but I think Derrick Henry, I know that there's some people positively on him. But I think you have to. You can do what you want right now with this Cowboys defense with the run game, and if you have a dangerous back, and I think Justice Hill will be catching stuff out of the backfield eventually if needed. But I think Derrick Henry gets and Lamar just really beat this Cowboys team to death up front, where they really haven't gotten much in the way of pass rush. You don't really have to neutralize them too much, but I think they clearly want to get him involved and just set the tone in this game. They didn't set the tone with him at all. In fact, all of his yards came later when it was a much more neutral game script than earlier in the game where they were actually winning by a touchdown or 10 points for a little bit. So I think whatever the game script is going to be, you're going to see Henry as a priority in this one. They've been they almost save him for these games. Like the first 2 games of the season, didn't do too much against KC as they're trying to come back, and then the Raiders, he did do well towards the end of the game, but then they just kept getting those those turnovers on third down essentially. So I think the rushing attempts are going to be up at around 15 again for him, 16, and if that's the case, then you got to take him on the over yards and probably a tutty. Maybe you look at a 2 touchdown bet for Henry as well, but that's getting a little bit obviously long shot. So
in total agreement. I have 2 plays in this game. I love Derrick Henry rushing yards. I laddered him up to 80, which you can get as of this exact moment in time, plus 180 at Bet Rivers, plus 160 everywhere else. I agree with everything you said. The Cowboys defense has been horrible stopping the run. And like the thing with the Cowboys, they were bad. They've been bad stopping the run. The difference now is like they never had to. Like you look at they've won like 12 games for 3 straight years. Like they've constantly been in these situations where the defense always has to pass it, and that's when they feast. Micah Parsons, all their Dexter Lawrence, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Dexter, not DeMarcus Lawrence.
Giants. Yeah,
DeMarcus Lawrence is the guy I'm thinking about. Dexter Lawrence, Giants guy.
Yeah.
So like I think the Ravens going to run the ball. I think they're going to have a ton of success doing so. The reason I'm only putting a half unit on that, and the reason why is because I also think that the Cowboys are going to be able to have success passing the ball. So I worry that like if the Ravens offense starts slow, it could be 14-0 before we even blink.
Yeah.
So I also like CeeDee Lamb 100+ receiving yards, which you can get at plus 155 at Bet365, I believe is the best price. It won't let me scroll over. Hold on, I have to zoom out.
Unless you have Circa,
sorry.
obviously.
Yeah, sorry if this is too small, but let's use Circa. It looks like 165 at Hard Rock is the best price non-Circa.
Yeah.
The Ravens pass defense has been not good. Through 2 games, it's a new defensive coordinator, so like that's not that much of a surprise. Like they got lit up by Brock Bowers all last week, and then they got lit up by Devontae Adams in the fourth quarter when we knew that the Raiders were going to pass. So I think CeeDee Lamb's due for a big game. Again, I'm only putting a half unit on each of these because they're a little anti-correlated, and like I've made the mistake of having 2 bets based on this like the same outcome. Like I did that on Thursday Night Football. I had Ramondre rushing and Breece Hall receiving. Turns out if the Jets are winning by 3 touchdowns the whole game, none of those things happen. So I've learned my lesson. So I'm not doing that this time.
No worse game script for you.
No, and it's one of those things where you don't think about into the game. Like I don't think, oh, what happens if this has a negative game script? I'm just like, oh, I like both of these outcomes. So yeah, and in an effort to not just get completely blown away or just I don't know what I'm looking for, but yeah, put a half unit on each. So
nice.
All right, looks like 2 more games. 49ers Rams. What do you got in this one?
Man, I had so much George Kittle stock, and then he just came up limping on a simple route like that. He wasn't even sprinting; he was just like quickly running, and like that sucked. But the thing here is obviously Debo out. Now he's out. Now CMC's out. This is another stinky game, to be honest. I know the Rams are hurt. The vibes are bad in SF. Just being honest, I have a weekly video with Dieter, who covers the 49ers as senior columnist, and like, it's not good in that locker room from what I can see and what I've been told. So it's a little bit nerve-wracking. George Kittle's a guy who just sort of like defies vibes. He is a vibe. So like he doesn't need the things around him to be positive energy because he's just brimming with it. But now you've got a guy now that's the top receiver who couldn't be further from brimming with positive energy, and that's Brandon Ayuk. So I really don't want to go that route. I'm sure I didn't look at it since all the George Kittle stuff went down, but I feel like the Brandon Ayuk stuff probably got nuked a bit because he's the only receiver left. So I gave a look to Kyle Juszczyk for anytime touchdown because of the fact that it was given to me by DK DFS. I was looking at one of his things and he was bringing that up. But I think the Juszczyk tutty was plus 500. Yes, you can still get it for about plus 500 on MGM, looks like. And then you've got that's really good odds. At least DK is 475 and FanDuel's 460. If you have MGM, though, I love the plus 500 for him. I think Jordan Mason is going to continue to go. He's going to get rushing and receiving and probably a tutty, but it's probably like minus 180 is the best price probably that you're going to find for it. You can get minus 162 for it. So something to that. Like those are the 2 guys that I'm targeting if I'm going overs in this game. If Ayuk stuff gets too high, then I'm going to look to fade that as well, to be honest with you. And then after that, like the Rams offensive line is in such shambles that I really don't know what to do with it other than unders. Maybe you take an over for a guy like a Tutu Atwell. There's nobody else to catch the ball. I did see a good look. I forgot his name already. The backup for Cooper Kupp is going to come in and play the Cooper Kupp role. So it's not even just
Whittington or DeMarcus Robinson?
Jordan Whittington. Yeah. So that's a look as well for somebody who's probably got low props and is going to be in the area of the field that gets a ton of usage and a ton of looks. Obviously, because it's Cooper Kupp, but the offense is reliant upon that, on his ability to do that. They run a ton of 2 wide receiver sets this year. So 2 wide receivers or whoever, if you get 2-2 in him, something to that effect, I think you're in good shape if you want to over.
Yeah, he's at 3.5 receptions for plus 110 at Fliff on the over, and Tutu is at 2.5 receptions plus 136 at FanDuel.
Tutu's the yards for me. He's going to have a high ADOT, but yeah.
Okay, so it's like so you're talking about a negative correlation for him with yards and receptions.
Could be, yeah.
Let's look at his yards just because I'm curious. I went with in this one while we're looking up Tutu Atwell yards. Come on.
Where you at?
That's Tyler Johnson. There we go. 20.5. Man, that's low.
Yeah,
that is low. I just think that they're not expecting the Lions or the Rams to be able to do anything.
I know. You need to have an offensive line hold for you to be able to get Tutu Atwell down the field for 20.
Yeah. Of the 2, I probably lean towards Whittington, but I'm not touching a Rams prop.
Yeah,
I laddered Jordan Mason rushing. I took him 100 plus. It's just like even I get it without Debo or without George Kittle. It's scary because he's such a good blocker. But this Rams team is just dead, and these odds have been nuked. So like this is another. Like you can get way better odds if you're on the Dub Club or even the YouTube videos. I got it at plus 140. Plus 123 is the best offered price at a sportsbook that doesn't count Bet Rivers. Plus 120 at Bet 365. They're just going to run the ball with him a million times, and that's really what it is. Like they have really nothing going in the passing game. If like people are going to be on Juwan Jennings and people are going to be on Ayuk, which I totally get. To me, this is just like a let's just get out of this game running the ball a million times and then and then see where we're at next week. Jordan Mason, he's fourth in the NFL with running back snap percentage. He's getting 81% of the running back snaps, but he's number one in rush attempt percentage. He's getting 76% of all the 49ers rushing attempts. The next closest player in terms of the NFL and their leader in the rush attempts percentage is Jonathan Taylor at 70%. So he's like 6% above him. Mm-hmm. Not only is he getting all the work, but he's been awesome. He has earned all the opportunity he's getting. He's second in rushing yards. He's tied. This was heading into week 3. So maybe Ramondre didn't do shit on Thursday Night Football, but heading into week 3, he was tied with Ramondre Stevenson for the most forced tackles of all running backs that have at least 25 attempts. So you're just kind of taking away the guys that only have one carry or whatever. He's second. He has the second highest yards after contact, the 6th highest yards after contact per attempt. So like both of those numbers are good. And they're one spot behind the Lions with the best rushing grade in the NFL, according to fantasy points. Like Lions are number 1, 49ers are number 2. They're also 6th in adjusted yards before contact. And they have the 5th best run blocking grade, according to PFF. Like no matter how you slice it, their run offense is awesome. Jordan Mason's been awesome. And the Rams have the 4th worst rush defense in the NFL, according to DVOA. And like this game is going to be a blowout from the jump. And we know that even in blowouts, Shanahan is just going to give this guy the ball a million times. Yeah. So 100 plus rushing yards seems like a lot. With the way the NFL is going, like no one's passing the ball, everyone's running the ball. So like, and he already hit it in week 1. And in week 2, that was a negative game script the entire time, which I would be shocked if this is a negative game script. Yeah. So give me that.
Yep,
all right. Last game, we got Sunday Night Football, Chiefs Falcons. What do you got?
Chiefs and Falcons is such a stay away for me because it's just also so stinky. I do have one play. Stay away from the side, like the 3.5 number is the thing that just I can't get next to. If this was a 3, I'd probably just take the Chiefs in this point, but the Chiefs are going to be playing grind. Like we're all forgetting, I think, that the last 2 seasons have been the Chiefs run the ball a ton and Pat Mahomes doesn't need to do anything until the end of the season or the playoffs. And then he does stuff, but it's not the same offense. It's a much better defense. And now you have no Isaiah Pacheco. I took a somewhat random one, but I've got CLV on it at this point. That's Carson Steele under 1.5 receptions. Let's go long money, Larry. Let's get that juice. Let's get juice in the end zone. Kyle loves Kyle. So Shanahan loves Juszczyk. I'm really with that. So yeah, I'm sprinkling that on the juice for the juice. And then the Carson Steele under 1.5 receptions play. I started to look at it and really just think like, well, maybe I'll take some Samaje Perine overs because Samaje on receptions, because the backup running back for the Chiefs, Samaje Perine, is really not even a backup. He's just a third down back. He's had 13 snaps. He's run 13 routes on all of his snaps. He's run a route. And he's gotten 3 targets. So he's going to be the guy they bring in. It's a total running back by committee. You've got Carson Steele, who has not had a target yet on any of his 18 snaps. He's run routes 3 times on 18 pass plays that he's been in. I should say not 18 snaps, 18 pass plays. And so now, yeah, he's going to be the lead back. But one, that ain't locked up. You also got Keontae Ingram, much faster, much better receiver out of the backfield that can also take those snaps on third down. But Perine is such a good pass blocker as well that they're going to have him out there on third down passing plays to either block or to go catch it. So I don't think you'll see Steele on any 3rd and 4 or greater plays like at all. So he's just going to get all his work within the goal line, some within the 20 for those rush plays to keep the defense honest. But I do think you're going to see a little bit more dink and dunk, a little bit more Rashee Rice for like 3 yards down the field like they love to do, and a little bit less. And even Justin Watson as well, as speedster. So not as much short yardage receptions for running backs outside of Perine and maybe Ingram if he sees the field.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, all the passing work is going to go to Perine.
Yeah.
I think that's a great look for plus 100. You're at least getting even money.
Yeah. I got plus 115 when I opened. Another reason, if you wanted me to throw out my CLV stuff, yeah, you can check those out on the video. But yeah. All
right. I went with a vibes play. I took Travis Kelce anytime touchdown.
Nice.
I get it. He hasn't done anything in the regular season, basically all of last year, and now for 2 games this year. I just find it hard to believe that without Isaiah Pacheco, the Chiefs are going to be as run heavy as they've been. And like, this is like some plays that I have are like, you can buy low on this guy, like the George Pickens play. He's getting a ton of work. It just hasn't been there. That's not been the case with Kelce. He's like their second, like in everything on the Chiefs tight end room. Like Noah Gray is getting more work as a tight end than Travis Kelce. I just have a hard time believing that's going to carry over week. And I have a hard time believing that they're going to be as run heavy as they've been through the first two games. Like if you look at like inside the 10-yard line, they've run the ball 70% of the time. That's the third highest rush rate inside the 10. They've played two close games, but they're 18th in pass rate, meaning 17 teams have passed at a higher frequency than the Chiefs. They pass on about 57% of the plays. It's a very, very low number. So this is all me saying that I don't believe this stuff is going to continue. And like, I don't think Travis Kelce's washed. He had a long catch and run called back last week that like he looked like the same Travis Kelce running down the field, getting open, Mahomes finding him. He had a huge reception in week 1. Same thing, like broken play. They found him. And I was on a tight end against the Falcons last week. Dallas Goedert, that blew up just aggressively in my face. But I still think that the tight end is a target against this Falcons defense. Like the Eagles, for whatever reason, didn't even look Dallas Goedert's way. But Raheem Morris last year when he was defensive coordinator for the Rams allowed the 4th most receiving yards and the second most touchdowns to tight ends. Last week, Travis Kelce, anytime touchdown was minus money. Now we're getting him to score touchdown at plus 140. Like that just never happens with Kelce. And I get it. It's because he hasn't done jack for 2 straight weeks, but I'm fading that. Like, I don't think that they're just going to put him on ice for the entire regular season. There are going to be games where they like, he reminds you like, okay, he's still just as good. And it's Sunday Night Football. Like, I don't know. Again, it's a vibes play more than an analytical play that I normally give, but I'm basically just being like what we've seen from the Chiefs. I don't foresee that continuing. So plus 140 on Travis Kelce to score, like you'll never see that price.
Yeah. Look, man, sometimes you got to play the vibes. Like I know that we're talking about what we're talking about in terms of the numbers and the stats and the volume and all this other stuff. And sometimes it's like I've been watching these games. The logic adds up entirely with what you said, and I follow it completely. No notes. Honestly, I think it's not even just a vibes play. It's like you're watching the trend of what's happening, and then you're playing a number more than anything. The number has gone to a really good spot for you in a situation that you haven't lost much advantage from last week to this week in terms of how much he's involved, which should be more now that Pacheco's out. So yeah, I'm totally game on the Kelce ATTD. I might even tail you on that one.
Yeah, like you're telling me they're going to run the ball 70% of the time without Pacheco inside the 10-yard line. Like they're Carson Steele fumbled last week. Samaje Perine is only a pass catcher. Eventually that's going to be Kareem Hunt and inside the 5, but he's like already said he's going to be inactive. So yeah, I think that I mean, like I said, it's a vibes play, but it's not like there's a little more to it than that. It's basically being like what we've seen last week isn't going to happen. So I'll add that to the sheet now. But yeah, all right, that's every game. Anything parlays, teasers, anything that you have that like kind of is just like an all-encompassing thing that you want to shout out?
Not really. I'm going to be looking for some teases real quick right now because that's what I love to do. I haven't talked about it much on the show yet, but I love taking teases on Sunday morning when the lines are the strongest, right? Market pressure has moved these things to a really solid place. Teasing an opening line is like, you don't even know if that's a good line yet. So what are you teasing this arbitrary number for? This is a strong number. So I think if you're the games that were ripe for the teases that I had written down, if you want to get them to a good spot, let me make sure I got this. I love even taking the Bucks up past 10. At this point, you can get 10.5. So that takes you through 2 key numbers of 7 and 10 for the Broncos, rather, to cover
Broncos against the Bucks.
Yeah, I want to make that clear. My bad. I was going to tease the Vikings if they were still at about 3.5 and they're at plus 1.5 against the Texans, but that is always a good look. The Chargers, I agree with you. They were also a good tease at 9. 2.5 is still not bad, but 9 it scares me a little bit there. So those were a couple of the looks for some teases that I was considering, and that was pretty much it. I'm not touching that Raiders-Panthers game. I was considering it, but Andy Dalton, the red rifle in there, just scares me. I think the key here is those for the teases or the play. I've got the SGP, and I'll probably throw a couple of these touchdown plays into a round robin as well for some plus money. So that we've talked about already, which are in the sheet.
Love it. Cool. Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. Only other stuff that I have is me and Fader do a touchdown round robin every week. Tater Robin, that's posted on Twitter. I think he just retweeted that this morning, so definitely make sure to go follow him and follow him and follow that. And like I said, there's a couple things that I accidentally clicked. Did you click that?
I think I did my bad. I don't even know what I was trying to look at something else.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah. And yeah. And if I like, there's a couple of stuff that I gave out that haven't made its way to my Dub Club. Anything that I officially play, that's where you'll find it. Cool. All right, Josh, want to tell the people what you're working on, where they can find you, all that good stuff?
For sure. Yeah. Appreciate it, man. Land Your Bets on YouTube is where all the videos come out with projections and previews all week. So definitely make sure you check out the YouTube channel there. On Twitter, it's at JL Boogie. But all my final plays also in the VIP Discord. And then they all come out with much better odds than by the time I'm on here for sure. So something to keep in mind as well.
There you go. I was trying to find your Twitter and put it in the chat and I just could not find it. But yeah, everyone go follow. Yeah. And all this stuff, like the VIP thing you're doing, do you want to just kind of detail that a little bit?
For sure. Yeah. So it's basically what it is like, I really realized like for the entirety of my plays and everything that I'm going to put out, rather than mostly talking about it in a video or talking about it, on social media or anything like that. That's where everything is for the final plays. There was a pretty big difference last year. It's all on wap.com/land-your-bets. It's all in, links are everywhere on my bio and all the description of the videos, but it's really mostly about having one place for people who aren't going to necessarily nuke the line because there's like 1,300, 1,200 people in the Discord. So rather than have everybody nuke these lines, in order to get them there, they are behind a paywall to make sure that we also limit the amount of people in there. But all the write-ups, VIP chat, so you can ask me directly. And if you do have the VIP package, then you can sign up for 30 minutes of my time once a month or once every other week. I have to figure out the cadence for each individual for 30 minutes, or if you want 15, whatever. But we go over bets that we're looking at for that night, upcoming week, strategy, any kind of explanation on any of the betting stuff that you might need, like units and bankroll and all that. So yeah, hoping to give a little bit more service in there than just picks. There's a lot more to be able to get to help yourself make your bets by yourself.
There we go. I love that. Yeah. If you're not just trying to learn, or sorry, not just trying to bet, but trying to learn, then that's like the number one thing that you can do. So cool. All right. Well, Josh, as always, appreciate you for joining me. We will be missing Josh next Sunday, but he will join us the Sunday after that. And then 3 Sundays from now, I will be out because it'll be the day after my wedding. So just it's the fall, man. We got a lot of stuff going on, but regardless,
you got to get married. I get it, dude.
Yeah.
Happy for you.
Appreciate it. Cool. Well, yeah, anyways, appreciate everybody for joining. Make sure to go follow Josh everywhere. Yeah, we'll catch you tomorrow for Monday Night Preview.
Hell yeah.